دقيقة واحدة لهم كلمة. طيب دلوقتي هنشوف فيديو. أول ما الفيديو يبدأ معنا احنا we went live. Okay? We'll start afterwards.
Under the slogan of shaping our digital future, the Arab International Digital Cooperation and Development Forum, the CDF, will bring together representatives and experts from Arab governments, the business sector, civil society, the technical community, academia, and international organizations. DCDF will be held virtually from 13 to 23 December 2021 by ESCO, LAS, ITU, UNCTAD, and UNDESA. Through almost 30 sessions over 8 days, you can participate in policy debate on priority issues in the fields of internet policies and digital development globally and in the Arab region. DCDF aims to align the Arab tracks of the World Summit on the Information Society and the Internet Governance Forum to maximize opportunities for digital cooperation. Register now to join us in this journey from 13 to 23 December. Together, let's shape our digital future.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon for all those who are following us on Zoom or on the YouTube or on the website. So this is really a very interesting session. It's actually a special event or special session that is taking a new flavor because of the new flavor of the new normal or the current normal that we are living in all parts of the world after the COVID. And while designing the architecture of the DCDF, bringing the Arab WSIS and the Arab IGF tracks, plus other tracks into the picture, we found out that there should be an appropriate focus on COVID. We didn't want to overdo the design and the substantive material related to COVID-19, because there are other venues that has done that sufficiently enough. But we retained that kind of a focus specifically for the special event we are in now, related to e-commerce, fintech, and e-COVID, because there has not been more impactful disruption, more impactful change of our life and behavior, whether on the social or the cultural or the economic in specific, than what happened during COVID with e-commerce and fintech. And therefore, the session is named as such, the e-commerce, post-COVID and beyond, global and Arab perspectives. So that session will have a number of segments. The first segment is setting the scene. Then we will have a quick surf on the landscape and the ocean of many national programs, many activities taking place in the Arab region related to e-commerce. The next segment will be more focusing on the fintech and e-payments solutions. Fintech in its own is an important discipline. And of course, e-payment in specific is part of the pillars for promoting e-commerce. And the last segment will be more futuristic on how to shape our digital future as per the slogan of our event. Without further ado, we have a very distinguished number of speakers from different stakeholders and at a high level of policy making responsibility. We will start by Mr. Khalid Hanafi, Secretary General of the Union of the Arab Chambers and a Professor of Economics and International Business. In fact, Dr. Khalid Hanafi just sent me a message a short while ago because he has had to go through a certain kind of small surgery that will not allow him to talk today. It's in the mouse. So he sent clear messages for me to convey. First of all, the apology for that ordeal. That is unfortunate, and unfortunately, he is not able to talk. So he will try his best if he can catch up with us at the end of the session. But if not, he stressed a few very important messages. The first message is the importance of e-commerce in not only building back better, but the importance of e-commerce in economic recovery after the pandemic. The other thing relates to the e-commerce in the field of trade and commerce in general, and the belief of His Excellency and the Union of the Chambers of Commerce that this transition is there to stay and that it will continue, and that the support that is now being provided by the members and by the governments of the commerce community is very serious, and there is a shared belief on the reality of this, let us say the word, humongous, and that is actually the right word, humongous change in the whole ecosystem. There are issues that are being also examined nowadays in that field of commerce and e-commerce, e-trade and conventional trade, including the logistic and regulatory aspects. And there is serious work that is going to take place with ESCWA soon in this regard, with the different stakeholders, and explorations are ongoing for an initiative and joint work to be announced, inshallah, next year. So with that, a few messages. I think that is a good perspective on setting the scene, but it cannot be complete without complementing it with our next video that comes from our main partner in designing this session. The partner is known. Our partnership with them is very well known. It's UNCTAD. UNCTAD has been the main instrumental player, orchestrator of a very important study on e-commerce and COVID. And it was announced and published. It was done in 2020 with our participation as ESCWA and other regions of the UN. So we are partner to this study, and it was published in the first quarter of this year. So we'll put now a video to set the scene on e-commerce and COVID-19 sent by our colleagues in UNCTAD.
Welcome to the COVID-19 and e-commerce global review. Discover the key findings from the study conducted by UNCTAD and E-Trade for All partners on the impacts of COVID-19 on e-commerce and digital trade. E-commerce has been playing a growing role as part of the wider digital economy in global economic activity for the past decade. It also provides new ways of facilitating the Sustainable Development Goals, bringing both new challenges and new opportunities. In fact, despite the global recession, the pandemic has led to a further acceleration of digital transformation. First, let's look more closely at the global economic impact of the pandemic. The global economy shrank in 2020 by an estimated 4.3%, over 2.5 times more than during the 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis. International trade, including intercontinental and intra-regional e-commerce, has been negatively affected by the pandemic. UNCTAD's latest estimates suggest that global trade in goods fell by some 9% in 2020 and trade in services by 15%. However, as social distancing and restrictions on movement became the new normal, many businesses and consumers went digital, providing and purchasing more goods and services online. As a result, the pandemic has led to a further acceleration of digital transformation. The share of e-commerce in global retail trade is estimated to have surged from 14% in 2019 to about 17% in 2020. Further acceleration of digital transformation was also observed in other sectors such as teleworking, gaming, distance learning, digital entertainment, online conferencing. The pandemic has also benefited the world's leading digital platforms. Most solutions being used for e-commerce, teleworking, and cloud computing are provided by a relatively small number of large companies based mainly in China and the United States. Consumers in emerging economies have made the greatest shift to online shopping. Latin America's online marketplace Mercado Libre, for example, sold twice as many articles per day in the second quarter of 2020 compared with the same period the previous year. An African e-commerce platform Jumia reported a 50% jump in transactions during the first 6 months of 2020. In China, the online share of retail sales rose from 19.4% to 24.6% between August 2019 and August 2020. In Kazakhstan, the online share of retail sales increased from 5% in 2019 to 9.4% in 2020. In Thailand, downloads of shopping apps jumped 60% in the week between the imposition of partial lockdown and full emergency measures during March. The accelerated trend towards e-commerce seen during the pandemic is likely to be sustained during recovery. More than 50% of those interviewed in UNCTAD's consumer survey in 9 countries said that they expected to continue shopping more often online after the pandemic. E-commerce platforms are therefore likely to retain many of the new market shares gained during the pandemic vis-à-vis offline markets. However, in many of the world's least developed countries, consumers and businesses aren't able to capitalize on the new e-commerce opportunities due to persistent bottlenecks and weaknesses in their e-trade readiness. Find out more about the impacts of COVID-19 on e-commerce and digital trade. Download the COVID-19 and e-commerce global review here.
COVID-19 and e-commerce. This is something that we are all witnessing. And actually, there is a move towards e-commerce that has been accelerated by the COVID. But generally speaking, the trend towards e-commerce and our partners in UNCTAD and their initiative of which we are members, also E-Trade for All, has exerted efforts to assess the readiness of countries to move into e-trade. And they started even before the pandemic. And they started with difficult countries that for them in different parts of the world has been very really thought of, that they can give that attention and care and serious commitment to boosting their e-commerce. So having said this, let me introduce a very distinguished colleague from the UNCTAD e-commerce and digital economy branch, Miss Anne-Catherine, Program Management Officer, E-commerce and Digital Economy, UNCTAD. She worked in that branch on several e-trade assessments. In her capacity, she oversaw that of Jordan and of Tunisia. Prior to this assignment, she was working in the International Trade Center, the World Bank Group, and the International Center for Trade and Sustainable Development, advising governments on issues related to trade and private sector development, trade in services, investment, and e-commerce. She holds a Master of Science International Public Policy from UCL. And Catherine, good morning, and happy to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you for this warm welcome.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I understand my presentation will be shared. I prepared a short presentation on the findings from the so-called E-Trade readiness assessments we conducted in Jordan, Tunisia and Iraq. Next slide, please. I will give you a brief overview of, the E-Trade readiness assessments. It was already mentioned, a bit of the context is really that the net impact of digital transformation depends greatly on the readiness of countries to engage effectively in e-commerce and the digital economy. And this has been emphasized, and critically now with the COVID situation. So since 2017, UNCTAD has been assessing e-trade readiness of countries. And the main objective is really to identify the main barriers and opportunities of e-commerce development in 7 key policy areas, such are the e-commerce environment, ICT infrastructure and services, trade logistics and trade facilitation, e-payment solutions, the legal and regulatory framework, e-commerce skills development, and access to financing. You heard already that we've been conducting these assessments in more difficult countries. Overall, we have conducted 25 in LDCs and 4 in non-LDC countries, including in Iraq, Jordan, and Tunisia. Upcoming are Kenya and Mongolia, and there are even 15 additional requests outstanding. Also, since last year, we have launched the implementation support mechanism, where we are guiding and providing assistance to those countries who have conducted an assessment in supporting the implementation of the recommendations. Next slide, please. So coming back to the impact of COVID-19 and on e-commerce, and indeed, as was shown in the video, e-commerce has increased globally, including in the Arab region. However, even though COVID has pushed more consumers to buy online, many e-commerce business in developing countries have struggled to adapt and scale up their operations. Consequently, there's a stark divide between the pandemic's impact on different actors in the digital economy. And so wholly digital business are much more resilient during the current situation. It just emphasizes again that it's more difficult to catch up for those which are not yet e-commerce ready. And the existing divides in terms of digital readiness underline the need to accelerate policy reforms and to mobilize support. There are a series of studies already from UNCTAD, but also other partners. I've included the sources here, including the Digital Economy Report 2021, and of course the global report on COVID impact on e-commerce development. Next slide, please. I will now highlight quickly, and I want to just emphasize that these assessments, and at least the Iraq one has been, pre-COVID has been conducted pre-COVID, but Jordan and Tunisia were conducted last year, or this year actually, in the midst of the COVID situation, and probably also the requests we're receiving are accelerated due to the COVID crisis we are all experiencing. I will go quickly through the main opportunities we have identified, but also the main challenges. And I want to emphasize, and maybe for further reading, that all of these assessments have, by all the 7 policy areas I already mentioned, have detailed proposed actions. And those, by policy area, they can be from 3 to 10 actions. I won't go through all of them, but I encourage you to, if you are interested in one of the countries or all of them, for further reading. And they're included in the action matrix. And also for Jordan and Tunisia, we're currently developing, we call them action plans, which are more comprehensive tool really to identify the targets, the timelines, the partners, the lead agencies, but also the budgets related to the proposed actions, which will help again to further guide the countries in the implementation of the actions. Now, let me start with Jordan, and the next slide, please. And here, the opportunities are manifold. There is indeed a high interest by national stakeholders to further develop e-commerce. ICT has been an engine for growth for the national economy in general, and for e-commerce in particular. Jordan has, or is performing well on international trade facilitation rankings, but improvements are still needed, in particular for cross-border trade. And while Jordan business and consumers still prefer traditional in-cash payment methods, the Central Bank of Jordan and other actors have exerted efforts to shift towards electronic payments, which was also accelerated through the crisis, as we've seen from this year on. In terms of the legal and regulatory framework, there are already a number of laws which have been drafted and promulgated. However, they're still incomplete or partially implemented, and would, require further implementation in order to reflect regional and international best practice. The digital innovation in Jordan is prompted by young and tech-savvy creative population, which is, a great opportunity for Jordan in the future to further develop e-commerce and the whole digital economy agenda. And also the Central Bank of Jordan has introduced many reforms and policies to improve access to credit and financial opportunities for all segments of the population. Next slide. What are the main challenges? And I go through them rather quickly. Even though there is, an awareness and understanding of the opportunities e-commerce can bring to the Jordanian economy, yet there is a lack of cooperation, coordination among key stakeholders. There is even, even though the ICT sector is relatively well established, the cost of internet remains still high, and there are significant inequalities between urban and rural areas regarding internet and mobile connectivity. Also, the capacity of local delivery service providers is still insufficient, and high costs of shipping remain. Furthermore, the cash and delivery remains the preferred option, and there's limited capacity of SMEs to adopt and use e-commerce solutions. As I mentioned, the current legal and regulatory framework is still not yet fully sufficient, and is therefore not adequately protecting SMEs and consumers. The skills provided by the universities still lack, and there's a mismatch between demand and supply. And also the loans from licensed banks do not serve the needs of entrepreneurs and SMEs. Again, here there are, just mentioning, we have the action matrix as part of the assessments, and based on the findings, we will develop a more comprehensive operational tool, the action plan, which may all serve in all E-Trade for all partners also to refer to and come back to supporting Jordan's digital transformation. Now, next slide, coming to Tunisia. Here, the opportunities are also manifold. There's a high interest and awareness on the untapped e-commerce potential for Tunisia. Tunisia has the internet accessibility and reliability is very good. Also, the internet infrastructure. There are existing ICT-related trainings and skills development programs. Furthermore, the legislation dedicated to electronic exchange and e-commerce is rather well established. The incentives framework for the development of startups is existing and has created more than 500 startups until May 2021, with 21% of these startups operating already in e-commerce. And the new regulation framework for payment institutions and mobile money, which was recently put in place by the Central Bank of Tunisia, can be seen as an opportunity and should ultimately allow better interoperability of financial services. Next slide. Yet there are still challenges. Also here, only low level of interinstitutional coordination, despite the awareness and the willingness. We see there's still fragmentation, and the effort of the e-commerce readiness assessment is really also to connect the dots between the stakeholders from different ministries and relevant private sector institutions to really make e-commerce happen in the country. In Tunisia, we found also that the internet costs remain high for low volumes. And furthermore, the logistics dimension of trade, in particular, the express parcel delivery sector, which is still not structured and neither regulated, and is therefore encouraging unfair competition between logistics service companies. Tunisia lacks a law dedicated to cybercrime, despite the existence of a cybersecurity strategy. And when it comes to access to finance, there is a rigidity of foreign exchange regulation, which deprives Tunisia of an enormous potential in terms of cross-border e-trade, especially with European markets. Furthermore, there are gaps persist between the skills demand, again the matching, demand and supply, what's needed from the companies in the digital economy, and what universities are sort of like bringing to the market. And when it comes to access to finance, this is still considered a major obstacle for operators in the e-commerce sector in Tunisia. Also here, we will develop a more comprehensive action plan. And I've also included the links to the respective publications, which will be available very soon. The Iraq assessment is already finalized, and you can access it on our website. Of course, let's keep in mind Iraq is in a different situation, and it has a different starting point than, for example, Jordan and Tunisia. There is awareness about the economic development and trade expansion, and that and also from national bodies that have developed initiatives that support growth of e-commerce. Mobile services market is fully liberalized, and the assessment has shown that e-commerce would help stimulate domestic demand and boost trade and diversify Iraq's largely oil-based economy. There is, improved security situation, but also the assessment can help the government of Iraq mobilize resources to really further support the digital economic and social transformation which is needed. Next slide. What are the main challenges? And again, Iraq is in a different kind of situation, as you all very much know. There is still, a lack of a unified vision on e-commerce. The infrastructure in general is still suffering major damages and still needs to be rebuilt. There are customs operational model in Iraq also needs an update, and also the role of the Iraqi post is still limited. Iraq lacks a comprehensive legal and regulatory framework regulating the ICT sector, and is insufficient so far to foster e-commerce growth. The private sector institutions, especially MSMEs, lack knowledge and expertise to effectively engage in e-commerce. And Iraq still remains a cash-based society, which also, works and need to help develop and introduce an e-payment solution which facilitates transactions. Let me now come to a more general overview. Next slide, please, and sort of like the key policy impacts of EG Readies. Again, we aim to connect the dots between, the stakeholders in the country, from the public and the private sector, development partners, academia, e-trade for all partners, and therefore, and this sort of like creates a critical inputs generated across the 7 key policy areas, which enable countries to better understand the interlinked issues related to the digital economy. There's a growing awareness about the role of e-commerce for development. Enhanced knowledge base also benefited international organizations, development partners, and NGOs and civil society. And the focal points we identified and worked with in the ministries and relevant institutions are really, essential and part of a national committee on e-commerce, but also the national e-commerce development going forward in the country. It's a very key role for us and for the country itself. The engagement across the ministries, what we experience has been strong, and we really hope that this kicks off, a more long-term engagement and discussion on e-commerce, establishing steering committees, etc., on e-commerce. There's constructive multi-stakeholder interactions have taken place, at least, have started with the e-trade readiness assessments, and they will also continue. And we have, created synergies between development partners, which have grown as part of not only the, the multi-stakeholder consultation process, which is preceding the e-trade readiness assessments, but also with the discussion on the action matrix, and now, as we speak, with the discussion on the more comprehensive operational tool, the so-called action plan. Let me maybe go there to the next slide and just bring to your attention.
Can we wrap up, please?
Done. Exactly.
For the sake of other people.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for your attention. So just to mention, we're working with 34 partners. It's called the E-Trade for All initiative, which is a platform to share knowledge on e-commerce and digital economy. And we encourage all to check out our website and join our efforts. Join the e-commerce week, which is a yearly event. It will take place in April this year. And there will be many sessions on COVID, I'm sure, just because it's such a prominent aspect of our current normal. And with that, I thank you and very much looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And let us now quickly, if we may, move to a fourth country. We have gone with now through a quick navigation with Tunis, Jordan, and Iraq. Now Palestine did not yet do the e-trade assessment, but they have done very interesting activities regarding e-commerce. We have Dr. Rabah Al-Mur is the Director of Research in the Palestinian Economic Policy Research Institute. He has PhD Innovation Economy from Lille University for Science and Technology in France, and he joined the Department of Economics and Najah National University, Palestine, as an assistant professor in 2012, became the head of economic department until 2015. His current research include knowledge economy, innovation, economy, labor, economy, and development. He's a fellow in the Regional International Economic Research Association, ERF, Arab Council for the Social Sciences, and Middle East Economic Association. Published 20 articles and more in international peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Rabah, good morning. And we have worked together in the second activity that was based on your first activity. The first activity was a study that you did for the Palestinian government. And then we did together this workshop for Palestine to boost the e-commerce and build back better for the next new normal. Can you quickly give us the main ideas of research that you researched, and how do you see the status and the way forward? And I don't think you have slides, right?
No. I just
so let it be like a dialogue in order also for the sake. So first of all, when you started scanning the situation in your own framework, what was the readiness and the passion about that study from the government?
Okay. Can I speak in Arabic or because the study?
Yes, sure. And if you can use the interpretation, and other colleagues will speak in Arabic.
Okay. شكرا جزيلا يعطيكم العافية. شكرا.
قد ايه كان في الحماس لهذه الدراسة، وانا شفت قد ايه كان في policy thinking وراها، وفي بدائل وخيارات وقرارات اصلا ومواقف خدتها الحكومة وهي بتصيغ مواقفها الحالية عشان تشجع الاي كوميرس. فيا ريت تدينا فكرة عن السياق ده.
بصراحة هي الدراسة كانت بجزء من أوائل الدراسات اللي انعملت في البلد. كان في بعض التقارير البسيطة، ولكن اللي تناولت قطاع التجارة الإلكترونية في فلسطين من كل الزوايا، يعني من زوايا التنظيمية، القانونية، اللوجستيك، الإجراءات الضريبية الأمثل أو الإجراءات القانونية الأمثل للتعامل معها. فالدراسة بشكل أساسي توصلت يعني نتائج مهمة خاصة في مجال السياسات. احنا عادة في معهد ماس من أكثر يعني دراساتنا مور بوليسي أكثر منها أكاديميك، يعني عادة بتكون توصيات لكل الجهات ذات العلاقة. زي ما ذكرت حضرتك بعض التوصيات يعني تم الأخذ بها من تشكيل لجنة. يعني بدي أعطي بعض النتائج الأولية إذا بدنا نأخذ بعين الاعتبار يعني الابروتش اللي ناقشتوها قبل شوي، اللي هي 6 مؤشرات للريدنس. إذا بدي أجي ألخص بس بشكل عام، يعني من ناحية الاي سي تي فعلا في عندنا جاهزية جيدة في فلسطين من ناحية نسب انتشار الإنترنت والكمبيوتر واستخدام يعني الأجهزة الذكية وإلى آخره سواء في الضفة أو غزة. ولكن المشكلة الأساسية إن أسعار الاتصالات في فلسطين أو الإنترنت والموبايل من يعني أغلى الأسعار في العالم أو في المنطقة العربية. بتصور في دولة واحدة فقط أغلى مننا، السودان، أو مش متأكد بالضبط، ولكن يعني نعتبر من أكثر الدول ارتفاع في الأسعار. صار تخفيضات يعني خلال السنوات الأخيرة، ولكن تعتبر يعني لسه يعني سلة الانترنت والاي سي تي عندنا مرتفعه في فلسطين. بدنا نيجي من ناحيه اللوجستيك، وهي تعتبر التحدي الاساسي بتخيل في فلسطين، اللي هي اللوجستيك، لان الظروف يعني الاحتلال اللي يعني موجوده في فلسطين مأثره بشكل كبير جدا. ما في عندنا سيطره على الحدود المعابر، سواء بين الضفه وغزه او سواء بين فلسطين والخارج. فاي تجاره الكترونيه بدها تيجي، او اي يعني طرد تجاري او اي عمليه تجاريه خارجيه، صادرات واردات، بشكل بدون لازم تمر عبر يعني الحدود او الموانئ اللي هي بسيطر عليها الاحتلال الاسرائيلي. فما في عندنا يعني موانئ خاصه فينا ولا مداخل بريه، وهذا الشيء انعكس على التجاره الالكترونيه. فكل طرود التجاره الالكترونيه هي بتيجي من خلال المعابر اللي بتسيطر عليها الاسرائيلي بشكل اساسي، واللي بيقوموا بفتح الطرود، وبتعرض جزء منها للتلف وبتتاخر لاشهر. يعني في بعض الطرود من سنوات، 5 و6 سنوات موجودة على الحدود. يعني قبل فترة يعني أفرجوا عن مئات آلاف الطرود اللي كانت جزء كبير منها تالف يعني بصراحة. فكمان يعني عادة الدول العربية في مشكلة في وصول الطرود من بعض الدول العربية لفلسطين بسبب موضوع الكود الإسرائيلي. فكمان في تحديات لها علاقة في يعني البريد لازم يجي على مناطق معينة داخل إسرائيل، واللي هناك لازم نروح الجانب الفلسطيني يتواصل، ففي صعوبة، ما في شاحنات كفاية تجيب الطرود على المناطق الفلسطينية والآخرة. هاي بشكل أساسي. وكمان في تحديات جاية برضه من عندنا من الجانب الفلسطيني، اللي هي مكتب البريد. في عندنا موظفين فقط في بريد من دائرة الجمارك عادة للإشراف على أكثر من 1,000,000 طرد بريدي سنويا، واللي هم يعني ما بيقدروا يعني يعملوا فحص على كل الطرود البريدية الخاصة بالتجارة الإلكترونية، ونوعية الطرود يعني غير كافية إطلاقا. عملية الأتمتة برضه فيها مشكلة، يعني تسجيل عدم الاستفادة من نظام التصريح الجمركي الإلكتروني الصادر عن الاتحاد العام للبريد، هاي برضه مشكلة. في عندنا حوالي 90 مكتب بريدي فيها 370 موظف فقط. فهاي كلها بتأخر بشكل أساسي اللوجستيك، اللي هي يعني وصول أو ثقة المستهلك الفلسطيني بالبريد الفلسطيني. في عندنا مشكلة أساسية تتعلق بشركات التوصيل، اللي هي بتتعامل بشكل مباشر مع البريد الإسرائيلي في القدس، لأن القدس العربية بيسيطر عليها البريد الإسرائيلي. فجزء كبير من التجارة الإلكترونية في فلسطين بتتم مش عن طريق اللي هي خلينا نحكي البريد الفلسطيني، فجزء منها بيجي عن طريق البريد الإسرائيلي وشركات التوصيل الفلسطينية، واللي أيضا فيش سيطرة عليه. هاي من التحديات. وسائل الدفع معظم الناس عندنا لساتهم زي باقي الدول، يعني حوالي 87% الدفع عند الاستلام. يعني فعملية استخدام وسائل الدفع الإلكتروني محدودة جدا. فلسطين تم ترخيص في فترة كورونا الشركة واحدة، جوال بي، للدفع الإلكتروني. فصار يعني نوعا ما الثقافة تغيرت شوي، ولكن يعني الغالبية العظمى من الناس يعني لساتها بتستخدم وسائل الدفع التقليدية. في عنا يعني نقطة مهمة جدا، أن قطاع التجارة الإلكترونية وفر فرصة كبيرة جدا لفلسطين خلال جائحة كورونا وخلال الفترة الحالية. في عنا يعني آلاف الفرص العمل اللي انخلقت خاصة للسيدات في مجال التجارة الإلكترونية، اللي هي ما بحاجة خلينا نحكي لمقرات وشركات، وما بحاجة لأوفر هيد اكسبنسز عالية. فوجد فيها يعني الآلاف من العاطلين العمل فرصة، ما بين هم يعني نساء بيشتغلوا في مواقع التسوق الالكتروني، او نساء بيقوموا بيصنعوا سلع او بيجيبوها من برا والى اخره. هاي كلها خلقت فرص عمل لعدد كبير من الشباب الصغار خريجين الجامعات اللي بيعانوا من بطاله. ففعلا خلق قطاع التجاره الالكترونيه فرصه، صح اقل من بدايه جائحه كورونا، ولكن الى الان صار عندنا يعني شبه انتشر ثقافه التجاره الالكترونيه في فلسطين.
تمام. أنا حبيت بس أسألك على الجزء اللي كان برضو أنا لاحظته، أن كان في بدائل بالنسبة للحكومة خاصة مثلا بموضوع الليجاليزيشن. يعني في الدراسة أنت أشرت إلى أن كان في تفكير نحط ليجل فريمورك ولا ما نحطش ليجل فريمورك. أنا مش هقول النتيجة، أنا قاريها وعارف، بس أنت take us into this dilemma.
صح.
What was the trade offs؟ يعني كان إيه؟ نحط ليه وما نحطش ليه؟
هلا إحنا أخذنا
اتفضل.
عفوا أخذنا تجارب دولية ثانية، درسنا التجارب الدولية في هالمجال. كان هي يعني الفكرة عند وزارة المالية وعند الجهات العامة في البلد هون إنه ليش ما نفرض ضرائب على القطاع، لأنه صار في فرصة وجائحة كورونا أدت إلى انتشار، في عنا مليون طرد بريدي جزء كبير منها الصين وتركيا والى اخره، فكان في تفكير انه يعني نقيد شوي نحط ضرائب الى اخره، ولكن الدراسه اثبتت انه ما في داعي نربط قطاع التجاره الالكترونيه اليوم قوانين جديده وضرائب جديده، لانها من شانها انها يعني زي ما نحكي تأثر بشكل سلبي على القطاع في بداياته. فأنا كان رأيي إن ننشر ثقافة التجارة الإلكترونية، تنشر بشكل أكبر بين الناس، ما بحاجة لقوانين جديدة، بحاجة لتنظيمات تنظم عملية يعني التجارة الإلكترونية، حماية المستهلك، وسائل
وبالتالي ما فيش ضرائب على الإي كوميرس في المرحلة دي.
بالضبط يعني هاي
الموضوع ده يمكن مهم ليه انا اقوله، لان في الجزء الخاص بالدسكشن في حد من المتداخلين معانا الباناليستس هيشرح لنا برضو الجزئيه دي قد ايه ان هي ممكن تكون في بلاد اخرى متقدمه في المنطقه ومع ذلك ما فكروش بالطريقه دي. مهم ان الموضوع ده نحطه قدامنا، يعني فلسطين بلد صعبه، ظروفها صعبه سياسيا وامور اخرى، ومع ذلك ارتأت ان احنا we have to give this يعني starting industry time حتى to flourish، وبعدين later on نبقى نفكر في الضرائب. وده كان من الحاجات اللي لفتت نظري في البوليسي ثينكينج. شكرا جزيلا دكتور رابح. Now let us move to the next intervention. So this intervention is by Mr. Ahmed El-Sobki. Mr. Ahmed El-Sobki is the founder and managing director of Acacia Integration. So now we are moving into the business actors. So that intervention is going to be coming from the eyes and the minds and the hearts of business actors. Although Mr. Ahmed used to be in the government before, so he has worn the two hats so far. He is a retired Vice President of the Information Technology Industry Development Agency, ITIDA, the founding chairman of Silicon Waha, and the general trustee of the Supreme Council for Cybersecurity in Egypt, working in the fields since the 80s, and director of strategic projects and Ministry of Investment, and many other positions. And now he is a board member of the Chamber of ICT Industries in Egypt. Quickly and hopefully with minimum slides, can you give us a more panoramic view on the region? We took 3 countries and then one more. We have 4. I know you have 3 now that you are going to give us, but give us more of a panoramic view on the region. And there is an important segment in his presentation. He will stop and let those entrepreneurs doing the e-commerce give their insights, concerns, and successes, as well as frustrations. We will listen to them through his very well orchestrated arrangement for his intervention. So Ahmed, you are the maestro now. You have 9 minutes in total. You and the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayman, for the introduction and for giving me the opportunity to present a joint work done before with ESCWA and UNCTAD. Let us go in a very quick, as you asked for, we will I will skip a lot of things in this presentation, straight on the 3 Arabic countries, the United Arab Emirates e-commerce market. It's now approximately $4 billion, 27% of the total trade, representing approximately more than the quarter of the trade in the country. And in Saudi Arabia, the market is approximately $7 billion in 2020, and the e-commerce, there is approximately 28 million e-commerce users in Saudi Arabia. In Qatar, the market is 2.2 billion compared to 1.2 billion, 1.9 billion in 2020. And in Egypt, the market is not clear, and this is one of the challenges we are missing or we are facing, the missing of data. But there is some other indicators about the internet users in Egypt and the level of penetrations. My colleagues from the private sectors, there was 4 colleagues or four companies to present. One is eCartona, and the second is eGlobal. The third was Jumia Egypt, and the last one is Swivel. Unfortunately, Hisham of Jumia Egypt is facing a health problem today, so that he is not available with us. And there is no one from Swivel, and I will present Swivel myself, so that we will start with my colleague Rania Sabri from eCartona. So please, Rania, join us.
Thank you, Mr. Sokki. I'm here. Okay, I'll talk quickly about eCartona. We started in July 2020. It was a great opportunity, actually, to start because the pandemic was in Egypt in March. So we kind of captured the opportunity because people were very insecure about going to the market and buying stuff. So we gave kind of a unique selling proposition of staying secure and buying with a whole price commodities. So it was a very good start and a very good jump to the market. We had a good opportunity to market ourselves and start with family and friends and deliver to the market a wholesale stuff. So people were buying with Cartona rather than buying single products. We offered a Cartona, half a Cartona, or even quarter. So we have the wholesale opportunity and the retail market opportunities. Our biggest challenge was actually, first we started with a website, and then we decided that we will go to the application. We designed an app and we launched the app. It took us like 3 to 4 month delay due to the approvals of the Apple Market and the Google Play. Then as soon as we launched the application, we started increasing due to the market segments and the target segments that increased using the application. Our second challenge was in the marketing budget. The awareness campaign was very good at the beginning, and we started improving and exploring many other channels for marketing eCartona. So it's going slowly but surely, if I may say. Updates for the app, the release takes a long time, and the marketing awareness, yet we are moving on that. So economically, we are very good because we ourselves with the competition. We do everything ourselves. We have the product in our warehouse, what we call a black store rather than a brick and mortar thing. A bit of fulfillment. All fulfillment actually is our own. Now we are moving very, very good with everything in-house. Still, if we grow rapidly, when we grow rapidly and we grow big, we will definitely need to move to outsourcing the fulfillment and outsourcing many stuff. Hopefully we won't go through that very quickly, yet it's moving very good now.
Thank you, Rania. Thank you, Ahmed, for the keeping the time. We have 4 minutes.
I think
please
we
give
will
the floor
have
to the next.
Tariq Abdulrahim from eGlobal to give us his insight about the e-commerce in Egypt.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ahmed. And I'll be very brief for a time. Well, eGlobal is a government-owned company, and its role is to help solve the many problems that exist in Egypt regarding cross-border trade. When you come to work with cross-border trade or e-commerce in general, you can only grow with increased selection of products on your website. And that usually happens from having international products placed on your website. To do this, you need to do 5 things. You need to price your product. So that means you have to identify the customs and the regulations and the inspection requirements. And that's a major problem in Egypt. The second, you need to deliver your product. So there's a huge problem, the logistics change itself. How do you consolidate items, the cost of shipping, and the delivery time. And there's also the custom clearance issue. In Egypt, one of the main issues we have is that until today, there's no regulatory system that helps support the B2C cross-border trade. There's a lot of work done on the customs side regarding the B2B, but for cross-border trade B2C, there's a major challenge. And our role there is to help automate this process and lower the cost and the time of clearance. And thirdly, at the end, or fourthly, at the end, there's the payment. Once you sell a product on an Egyptian website and you're an international seller, how do you receive payment? And we have to solve this problem as well. So these are the 5 challenges we have in Egypt regarding cross-border trade, whether it's import or export. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tariq. I will go for the Swivel. Swivel is totally a different experience in Egypt because Swivel is providing a service, not goods. So that it has been established in 2017 to solve or to find a solution for the Cairo traffic, and then they found it's better to do an electronic platform for buses, something like Uber, but for buses, for the people and for the organizations to organize the traffic of the employees from one part in Cairo, Greater Cairo, to other, and then they expanded to other cities in Egypt. In 2019, they started to expand in Africa, in Kenya, Nigeria, and then they expanded to Asia in Pakistan, and also in Jordan in the same year or end of 2019. Swivel, when they expanded to Africa, they expanded because they raised a $42 million request, and they got it from Sweden, from the United Arab Emirates, and other angel funds in United States and Oman. In 2021, Swivel signed a merger deal with one of the big financial institutions, and this deal was $1.5 billion deal. And this make Swivel the second unicorn Arab company after Careem, which has been acquired by Uber some years ago. But the difference between Careem and the Swivel is that the deal is including putting Swivel on NASDAQ stock exchange in United States of America. So that this was one of the most famous and successful e-commerce companies in Egypt, starting by 3 friends or three schoolmates, and they could make a more than $1 billion company in less than 4 years. This is the other successful model in our area. So that it's your decision whether to go to the challenges and open this, or what will we do now, Ayman?
Okay, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much for adherence to time. We have only 20 minutes. We want to move to the fintech as well as the e-payment segment. And then with your permission, we may take more time beyond the budgeted time. So let me recap on that very interesting presentation and composite presentation, in fact. So you have given us order of magnitude of investments and sale volumes, and also of different maturity in e-commerce aspects for 4 countries, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, and Egypt. And then you took us into that journey of 3 different models of business. Start up by at the very seed stage, early stage, but a successful business start up that is delivering a real full-fledged brick and mortar kind of an e-commerce model, from the ordering to the delivery. So they have the fulfillment, and that is a very young company and promising. The other company, eGlobe, is a different type of ownership of shareholder structure. It's not based on entrepreneurship as much as it is based on a vision of a country and a major telecom actor, which is the Post, the National Post, creating this eGlobe company to not only work in the domestic market, but as well to work on the most difficult thing, which is the cross-border, with all the complications it has, and with all the potential also the company has regarding its backing by the Egypt Post and the Ministry of ICT, plus other shareholders. So that is a different model. And that model, as I understood, is also in a bit, let us use a word that represent that, let us say, multi-layered in a way, rather than using the word only fulfillment. It has different layers like eCartona, but they also work as kind of back up in the logistic element related to other companies, even competitors. So I know Jumia, we prepared with them. Hisham has that health problem. Unfortunately, he's not with us from Jumia Egypt. But it's a third model that you were planning to present, a multinational opening a branch. And when we examine the competition and the supply chain and all these aspects, we got some kind of the observations. We will leave it to the second round. But the e-commerce ecosystem is not an easy one. It is so much difficult because of the easy entry barriers. So competition is very harsh. And the last thing that you presented is already a success story that navigated through the quick seed stage to early to late stage, even all the way to IPO or NASDAQ listing, at least. Not it's a merger, it's an acquisition, but it's the dream of all entrepreneurs. So you give us the ultimatum by Swivel. You give us also another model that is not product-based, not commodity-based, not merchandising listing. It is a sort of another Uber, but for buses. And you also highlighted the idea of the exit strategy. So that brings us to a question at the end. We hope to get time to discuss it. Is this the best strategy for the economy of the region, for the digital economy of the region? For the entrepreneur, yes. To do a company and sell it no harm in that, nothing unethical. That is normal rules of the business. But is it always the only destination and destiny that the success is measured at? And we have now not only one, but two, not only two, but three. If you remember Maktoob, that was sold to Yahoo, and also Souq sold to Amazon, and so on. So there are 4 or 5 being sold. So that, let us think of that question from a macro perspective. What is the best for the digital economy in the region after we finish the fintech and the e-payment segment? So now moving to the government.
Sorry for interrupting you, but there is always another very old online company has been also sold to international one, which was in the beginning in 90s, Otlub.com, and now it is part of Talabat.com,
which is part of Jumia.
Which is part of, mainly it was a German company, then a lot of other acquisition and merging.
Okay, so let us put that question again on the table with all the panelists from all segments. Is this the best destiny for our unicorns to be not our unicorns anymore? Anyways, let us move to Mr. Ahmed Saeed, who is a very good friend and business partner, representing a very dear organization to us in this domain, National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt, Mr. Ahmed Saeed. Mr. Ahmed Saeed is the Executive Director of the International Policies and a Vice Chairman of the ITUT Study Group 3 and the B4 Smart Village Giza, the National Telecom Regulatory Authority in Egypt. So maybe I confused the audience, but you know, I'm already having some health issues. I hope you are fine and hope your family is fine. I know that you had some also things, but very grateful that you are with us with all your responsibilities.
Thank you, Ayman. Thank you.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayman. Thank you, Ayman, for giving me this opportunity. And thanks for everyone who are attending this session. So I'll be tackling the issue of e-payment as we agreed, and digital financial services in general from an Arab perspective, as the region, from my point of view, has the same, all the countries in the region has the same challenges. So let me start by saying that the digital transformation that has appended the industries from retail and media to transport and business to business commerce is now sweeping the financial services. So as a converged service, digital financial service involves many stakeholders to the game. And due to this convergence of the service, the challenges didn't stop at the regulators level, but there are challenges related to culture, consumer, and more things that needs to be tackled in a way that suits the Arab region. So I'll be speaking about the challenges from my point of view. This is I'll be focusing on 4 major challenges that I see, aside from the technical challenges that we all know. But one of the main challenges I see is, for example, and also you will find me talking a lot about the mobile money services due to the background. So for the regulatory environment challenge that I see, one of the key drivers for a successful mobile money scheme is an enabling regulatory framework. As a converged service, there is involvement of 2 sector regulators that should work together in harmony and collaborate to help increase the penetration rate of these services and ultimately serve the financial inclusion goal. I see that proper collaboration between the telecom regulator and the central bank is crucial and will help also create a healthy regulatory environment. MOUs could always be an excellent tool for this collaboration. We have very good examples in Egypt and Jordan. The major benefits of Memorandum of Understanding or MOUs that it identifies and defines the roles of the responsibility for each regulator and help the regulators to tackle the issues that are hurdling the pickup of the service. Also, having a unified regulatory model is usually an outcome from these MOUs, as the regulations are reviewed by both regulators, or maybe a committee formed as a result from this MOU. Also, one of the major influential regulations that need to be kept into considerations are the wallet regulations in terms of wallet capacity, transaction limits, and number of wallet per user. Wallet regulations should be set carefully and after an accurate analysis, so not to impact the financial ecosystem negatively or allow illegal transactions like money laundering and financing terrorism. Also, another issue which I see crucial is the consumer protection and trust, the trust issue. The issue of trust is important, and is one of the major challenges that I see. Trying to convince the users to switch to digital financial service or e-payments and discuss the traditional financial service is a hard process. Although the rights of the users are protected by regulations issued by the central banks, and this should give some confidence to using these services, but still trust of using digital financial service is not strong enough. You know, the Arab region is characterized with cash societies that are used to physical money and not trusting any electronic mean. Cash is always trusted more than the electronic payment mean. As for example, in e-commerce, you could see that you will find that many people, or a big percentage of people using e-commerce usually will use cash on delivery, they will not use the credit card payments. This is due to another factor also, which is the credit card penetration in the Arab region. As you know, that during in the latest report for World Bank Fintech report, in 2017, only 5% of the Arab population had credit cards. So it's a very low percentage compared to other regions. But I'm sure, you know, the pandemic has changed the culture in a bit, and also created a new normal for this issue. But still, it's an issue. If we look in the causes of this mistrust, also we will find that digital illiteracy and lack of awareness is another factor that is affecting the digital financial service penetration or use. The issue of awareness, is very crucial, and you can, from my point of view, I can level it up into 3 levels. A level that people doesn't know about the service or doesn't know that the service exists, and this is maybe this case now is the lowest percentage of the 3 levels. The level 2, you will find that people that knows about the existence of the service, but they don't know how to use it, and this is a matter of digital illiteracy. The 3rd level I see is people who knows that the digital financial service exists and they know how to use it, but they still don't trust it. These issues are common here in the Arab region, and I think there should be awareness campaigns to help enhance the penetration rate and the diffusion of this kind of payment services. The 4th issue I see is the supply chain. Maybe I can ship it the right product. The supply barrier of the non-availability of suitable products is due to the fact, you know, the banks usually did not cater to consider low-income earners to be of much importance to them. After the introduction of mobile telephony, it was noticed that the penetration rate of mobile phones and subscribers had very high penetration rate within the Arab region. So as a tool for financial inclusion, the mobile financial services created a new room for including the poor to be included in the formal economy and use the banking services through an easy and cheap mean of payment. But since historically banks have been catering to the rich a bit and not the poor, commercial banks have not created financial services and products that are catering this section of population. That's why the service offered sometimes by mobile money providers does not cater the need of poor in terms of charges or the types of service itself. Some Arab countries tried to look into the need of this segment, and after analysis, they started to provide some services that are tailored to serve these categories. Maybe I think I can give you an example. The government of Egypt made the use of financial service to pay the alimony for eligible divorced and widowed women. These services were quite appreciated by the community since they help those women to get their alimony in an easy and time-saving way. These are the major challenges that I see for diffusing e-payment among the Arab region. Maybe there are some steps that needed to be considered by the Arab countries in order to diffuse and tackle these challenges and diffuse the mobile financial service or the digital financial service as a whole. So for example, what I see in developing a national financial inclusion strategy that considers the digital financial services as an integral part of the efforts to improve financial stability and integrity to the community, but also to protect consumers, to secure the financial system against the risks of informal cash economy. Also, I see the collaboration between sector regulators. It's very important to encourage sector regulators to formally cooperate and define the area of cooperation and the boundaries of responsibilities. There are many forms of collaboration, starting from bilateral meetings, forming joint committees, MOUs, as I said, that helps both regulators to oversee this converged service and help increasing the use of these services. Also, another important point is the competition frameworks for these types of services. It's very important to develop a competition framework in order to create a fair environment between mobile operators and banks in this particular part. So competition between banks and mobile operators will not do any good for this service. Let's agree about that. And the major role of the framework is to maintain the service level at an affordable price without any anti-competitive acts from operators or banks. So I see that the key aspects that should be tackled by this framework also could be the channel access, transparency, interoperability, data and regulatory aspects. Sorry, I'm trying to talk fast in order to be tied by the time. Also, maybe developing awareness programs to inform the public about the digital financial service and the benefits. So in order to overcome this issue, I think it's very important that all stakeholders on different levels collaborate to resolve this matter of awareness. The collaboration should be between sector regulators, operators, banks, financial institutions, service providers, until it reaches the level of the agent themselves. The agent.
Tamam. Ahmed Bek, thank you very much for this insightful intervention. And actually, I worked with you on that since 2017. We've been working together. Yes. And not alone, we believed in the role of regulators, the NTRA and other NTRAs. And we also believed on the banking sector.
Sure, for sure.
There is, as you said, a need for more collaboration among these two main sectors. But with their cooperation, we managed to go through the pandemic. And I remember last year, during the pandemic, we had exchange on the research level regarding the measures taken and the wallets and all these things. Let us together welcome our other, let us say, long-time partner, the Union of Arab Banks, and the Union of Arab Banks representing the banking sector without which, I mean, there is no fin. There is tech, but there is no fin, and there is no wallets, and there is nothing that can float in a virtual space unless another story about in other session about the Bitcoins and things like that. Let us now focus on the role of the banking sector in this fintech revolution, in the e-payment that enabled e-commerce in general, before, during, and after the pandemic. Let us welcome Dr. Ali Aoudi, Head of Economic Research in Union of Arab Banks. He holds a PhD in finance from City University of London, and he is an academic and researcher in banking, monetary policy, and financing for development, and long-time partner. Hello, Dr. Ali.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ayman. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me for inviting me to participate in this beautiful event. Dr. Ayman, first of all, I'd like to say that, well, after we met on Friday and discussed the points that we're supposed to talk about, I restructured my presentation and directed it more towards financial technology and the role of banks. So I decreased the size of financial inclusion issues and sustainable development issues.
Well done.
I focused more.
Well done. Let us see the big picture more.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, perfect. Okay, so okay, perfect. So digital transformation in the banking industry and financial technology. Following slide, please. So first of all, am I supposed to move it or someone else? Okay, perfect. So overview of financial technology.
We will move it according to your speed. So whatever speed, we will try to adjust.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I'll try to respect the time given to me. So I might skip some slides. Anyway, so over the past few years, we've witnessed a considerable revolution in financial technology. Of course, financial technology started with the ATM in the 1960s, but so ATM is a financial technology. But what we're seeing today is a boom in financial technology, whether in the technological infrastructure or in terms of the financial or services and products provided by or under the title financial technology. So this revolution in financial technology and financial technology services is competing now with the traditional financial services provided by banks and by other financial institutions, whether in terms of speed, volume, and of course cost, and of course other points like outreach and so on, and I will cover them later on. So fintech or financial technology includes financial products and services that aim to improve the quality of traditional financial services and banking services, to make them faster, cheaper, simpler, and more accessible, and particularly accessible to those who do not deal with the banking system due to several constraints. For example, due to distance constraints, due to cost constraints, due to maybe regulatory constraints, and so on. So financial technology can overcome, or let's say allow to overcome all these constraints. Following slide, please. Fine. Now, who develop or who offer the financial fintech services? Actually, these are developed by startup companies, not by banks, startup companies. And these startup companies, they aim to either cooperate with banks or compete with banks. Now we will see the type of relationship between the two parties. Is it competition or cooperation or combination of two? These fintech companies, these startups, now provide everything you can imagine related to financial services. For example, payments, and this is maybe the largest segment of financial technology, digital currencies, money transfers and remittances, lending, crowdfunding, and particularly to SMEs and even micro institutions that cannot obtain financing from the classical or traditional banks, wealth management, insurance services, and everything else you can imagine. Following slide, please. Okay. Now, there is a contrast or contradiction between financial technology startups or fintech startups and banks. This contradiction, I will highlight some points of these contradictions. These contradictions made the relationship between the two parties fruitful, beneficial, whether for banks or fintechs or even their customers. So on one hand, we all depend on banks. We are dependable on banking institutions, and we believe that they are credible. So the need for banks, the credibility of banks, particularly from regulatory point of view, combined with the freedom to innovate that fintech startups obtain, make this marriage fruitful, beneficial for them and for the markets. Because banks are more regulated, of course, banks are encouraged to innovate, to present or introduce or offer new products. But due to regulations, there are some restrictions on their speed in innovation, because innovation and more reliance in technology will make them subject to many risks, including cyber security risks, for example. So this fact actually is for the or let's say gives an advantage for fintech companies, which let's say create the need for banks to engage with fintech startups. Following slide, please. Fine. Now, why would bank collaborate or cooperate with financial or fintech startups? First of all, this allows them to access to emerging technologies. Maybe they are not able to obtain, maybe for cost considerations, maybe for regulatory considerations, maybe for financial considerations, budget considerations, and so on. Number two, because customers have increasingly, or let's say they are increasingly tend to rely or to ask for more digital services. So this will allow banks to, by collaborating with fintech, allows them to follow their customers, allow banks to follow their customers and let's say meet the needs of their customers. And of course, as we saw in the previous slides, some fintech startups, they provide a comprehensive range of services, from digital currencies to funding to insurance to wealth management and so on. And some banks cannot provide all these services, all these products. That's why they provide them through a cooperation with a fintech. Following slide, please. From the fintech perspective, so a cooperation with a bank opens access to a large base of customers, a large base of stable customers, and engaging with the bank provides a fintech company with the credibility, because banks are heavily regulated. So when a bank accepts dealing with a fintech company, this proves that the fintech company is credible, reliable, and so on. And banks actually have, some banks, mainly the big ones, have bigger investment budgets, which are not available for fintech startups. And of course, the know-how, the engagement with the bank provides a fintech startup with the knowledge, in particular related to regulatory dimensions, like due diligence, like compliance, like risk management, AML, CFT issues, and so on. Following slide, please. Following slide, please. I'm not sure if my screen has freezed or these slides are not moving.
We have the screen on banks and fintech partnership or a conflict. We can see this one.
Okay, so fine.
Bullet points, right?
Yes, yes, this one, please. Yes, this one, please. The collaboration between banks and fintechs is evolving, particularly in light of COVID-19. The necessity of working from home and the social distancing necessities actually forced banks to rely more on digitization and to digitize and more services. So this pushed them to increase their cooperation or reliance, or name it whatever you want, on financial technology startups. Because during the past 2 years, fintech companies proved that they have a huge flexibility, much more than banks, to transform their services into digitized services. The following slide, please. I think we missed some slide with a chart.
Yes, the one
yes,
with
this one. Yes,
Venn diagram. Financial institutions, fintechs, and shared.
Yes, exactly. So on the left-hand side, we see the benefits for the financial institutions, and actually not only for banks, but also for other financial institutions. And on the right-hand side, we see the benefits for the fintechs, and the middle circle somehow, the shared benefits that the two parties can obtain. I will move forward because we've already highlighted them. I'd like to highlight some of the largest acquisitions occurred in 2021 by banks, banks that acquired fintech companies. So they acquired fintech companies totally. And of course, these fintech companies were established several years ago. So these JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America, the largest 3 American banks, tend to acquire fintech companies to digitize their services. So, for example, JP Morgan engaged in 3 acquisitions in 2021. The third one was a San Francisco startup called Open Invest. Goldman Sachs bought a New York-based Isuso Financial Inc., and another fintech startup. And Bank of America bought a German healthcare payment fintech, Acacia. The following one, please. The following slide, please. Regarding partnerships, also the other banks engaged in partnerships. For example, Royal Bank of Scotland, Royal Bank of Canada, Bank of Montreal, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Barclays, ING, Lloyds Bank, etc. So all these banks now entered in partnerships with the fintech companies. I'm still highlighting the global perspective. Later on, I will highlight the Arab region perspective. So there are several models for the cooperation between fintech and banks. They are listed here. There's something called bank referral. There's something called fintech referral, or fintech investment or acquisition, private label solution, bank to bank, partial outsourcing, through bank model partnership. So the cooperation or the relationship between fintechs and banks changed. Now, fintech in the Arab region. By the end of last year, there were 400 fintech companies across the Arab region. Most of them, 84%, are offered by independent providers. They have nothing to do with banks or some other financial institutions. Almost half of them operate in payments and remittances. 2/3 rely on business to customer model, not business to business model. In 2020, it's predicted that the number will double. As you see from this chart, about 50% of the startup companies are located in 3 countries, UAE, Egypt, and Morocco, whereas the other 50% are distributed or spread over the other 19 countries. Following slide, please. In fact, unlike the models we've seen in US and Europe, where banks either acquire fintech companies or enter in partnerships with fintech companies. In the Arab region, banks are still reluctant to engage in deep collaboration or deep relationship with fintech companies. The Arab banks prefer to develop their own technological infrastructure internally. So until now, the cooperation or relationship or acquisition of Arab banks, of fintechs, is extremely limited, maybe one or two banks, and the majority of them tend to, as I said, develop their technological infrastructure internally. Following slide, please. Okay, we can skip this. I will talk about it quickly. The financial inclusion in the region is, in the Arab region, of course, is still very limited. So fintech might be one of the solutions to develop the financial inclusion in the Arab region. I hope I stick to the time given to me.
Yes, you did. And really, I congratulate you on the choice of the focus of your intervention. And that means that it is not only the e-commerce that has been changing in magnitude, but all the, let us say, adjoint ecosystems, the payment, the financial sector, the banking sector, the regulators, they are all witnessing reinventing phenomena. So let me now ask your permission if we wrap up or we take 10 minutes or 15 minutes. By the way, this is one of 3 sessions, statistic-wise, one of the 3 sessions of our like almost 40 sessions in the event that really went beyond the budgeted time. But that means there is a lot of wealth of information and interest. Would you like us to take 10-15 minutes more? Seems there is no objection. So we will expand the session a little bit to have some also room for discussion, for question and answers, and so on and so forth. So from your perspective, to all panelists, from the beginning, from Anne to Dr. Ali, what is it that you really would like to see in the future of our digital life? And let me be specific, in the Arab region. So what is it that you would like to see in the new picture? How and how can we shape this picture together to reach what we would like to have? Who wants to raise the hand? Start first. Any one of you can just raise the hand and we will pick it up. So Ahmed was the quickest. He's business now, business sector, and he's very savvy, time to market, to raise the hand. Ahmed, what is the dream of our digital future, and how would you like us to shape it? We cannot hear you. You're quicker in raising the hand than the unmute.
Let me tell you something that, in my opinion, a digital world in our Arab region should be a very comprehensive one, so that we will have a real digital transformation, not only in the technological issues, but also in the legalization and regulations. So that we need the cooperation first on the same country level, so that all the authorities in every country are on the same wavelengths of the digital transformation. And then we need the coordination and cooperation between many of or all of the Arab League countries. We found that UNCTAD has tackled only 3 countries in the Arab world for the infrastructure or the e-commerce readiness assessment. So that we need for many of the Arab countries a need assessment or an e-commerce based assessment first, and then we should know what is missing in every country, and we start to put or complete the picture to have a ready Arab digital economy or agile Arab digital community, or we can put a lot of names to it. But this is, in my point of view, we need to do it. I think to UNCTAD, you need to tackle Egypt. Egypt is one of the biggest countries in the world.
We are already working on that, Ahmed, with UNCTAD. So there is good news soon.
So we need
decided to move into the e-maturity assessment, e-trade maturity assessment, which is one step beyond the readiness assessment. Okay. So we will give the right dose for the right situation. And she's smiling, Anne, and of course will not work during the vacations, but after the holidays.
Okay, that's very nice, and this is very good news to me. And we want to work on the challenges we faced last year in doing our joint study, whether on the ESQA level or on UNCTAD level, for lacking a lot of information related to the infrastructure and the infrastructure for e-commerce and other.
Let me take the mic for sake of balance, but I will put an information now, a piece of information. We are now, as ESQA and League of Arab States, working on the Arab Digital Agenda. And in the Arab Digital Agenda, there is a component on digital economy. And in digital economy, of course, there is focus on digital trade and related R&D, innovation, e-commerce, fintech, all this kind of components. So it is important that you keep following up with us on an important consultation that we will make on the initial drafts of the Arab Digital Agenda, so that all the business sector, entrepreneurs, regulators, and any stakeholder would have a say in shaping our digital future. So that is the Arab Digital Agenda. We work also on national digital agenda per country. We do national digital reviews per country, of which a component is on digital economy, e-commerce, and so on and so forth. And by the way, the same magnitude of interest and depth and breadth of knowledge in this session was also witnessed in the session on e-government and digital transformation. So I think the two sides of the coin, e-government from one side and digital economy on the other, digital transformation and this kind of new ecosystems will take us to new frontiers. But let me see who is raising hand again. Anne, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Ayman and Mr. El-Taqid. So just quickly coming back to Egypt, I understand and I want to acknowledge that the UNCTAD team has actually supported Egypt in developing an e-commerce strategy back in 2018 already. So it might be good, you know, if the team is also looking into the maturity now to take this into consideration and see how this is reflecting still the reality given the changes caused to COVID. Responding to your earlier questions, Dr. Ayman, I just would like to make 3 points. One, you know, what do we want to see for the digital future of the region? One, and I want to highlight here the assessment we've done in the context of the Digital Economy Report 2021. And this is very much addressing, you know, closing the digital and data divides which exist among countries. This can come to, you know, digital divides related to internet, related to rural versus urban areas, related to women, youth, other groups not having the same access to even, I mean, we heard from the banking sector, there are several divides we are facing for the digital transformation to happen. And we need to work on this together at the national, but also at the regional level. And the more, the better. The more coordination exists, the better across ministries. And one last point, just on competition policy, I think this is something which needs to be addressed, in particular also in the recovery phase now. So it's not, and you mentioned the unicorns, Ayman. It's it's more about creating an even playing field for all players, because also the newcomers and the bigger companies are bringing jobs and are creating opportunities for SMEs and micro SMEs. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, we understand that. We just want to see the picture from different angles, and definitely with like an open digital economy, a liberal digital economy, and complicated digital economy, we need really to see things from different angles. And let me also say that this event is part of the Arab WSIS track, but the Arab IGF is also part and parcel of the whole event. We had a session on digital economy. We also touched on taxation of digital economy, on global policy movements, and we have to shape a position regarding this type of changes in the model. And the same when the IPR movement, intellectual property rights movement, was there. It has pros and cons. It has winners and losers. So let us see also the taxation of digital economy, discuss it more, have a dialogue on it, and see where would it bring us and when can we be taking this position or the other. I think Tarek can give us also an interesting aspect of the dream that we want to shape for our digital future regarding his business line. Tarek, please.
Thank you, Ayman. The future, or the whole point of going digital and going online, is to support SMEs, to support small sellers sell their products globally. The beautiful about the digital world is that we connect the world together, and building an infrastructure, an offline infrastructure that helps support this growth is very important. Our dream is to help support exports from Egypt, not only from Egypt, but in Africa and the Arab world. And to do this, we have to work on the logistics aspect. We have to work on the legal and regulations that exist, and the barriers that exist in the customs, and the cost of customs and the cost of clearance. And this is very, very important. One of the initiatives we have for the future is to develop bonded facilities in which e-commerce companies and sellers can stock their products in the markets they want to sell. So today, if I'm an Egyptian SME who has a product he wants to sell, I want to be able to stock this product in the American market, or the French market, or the UK market, or the Saudi market. And this is our role as Egypt Post and as government to help support this infrastructure. The goal of government is not to compete with the private sector. Our goal of government is not to launch platforms and compete. The goal of the government is to support the private sector grow by offering infrastructure and regulatory services. And this is what eGlobal is working on, to solve the core issues that exist in the market.
Okay, that's good. You described the picture and described the instruments to reach that goal, with also a wise position of the government regarding enablement of the SMEs and opening export opportunities, which is the language now of the digital economy. And of course, it has its own trade balance in the same sense that the more you can export, the more economic value you can create. So who else want to share with us his aspirations? Ahmed, how do you would like to tell us about shaping our digital future from the perspective of this session?
Thank you, Ayman. One last thing I wanted to say about this matter. The support, I want to talk about the support the government should give to innovation in digital finance and fintech in general. I see that the government should support the innovation in fintech by encouraging running incubators program, sponsors labs, and sandboxes that could facilitate the development of fintech in the region.
Okay, so maybe we can also work with governments on that, hackathons, and also type of, let us say, incubators and accelerators for that business. But you're representing the government, but ICT sector, ICT ministry, not the finance ministry. Tariq, yesterday when we were speaking, he referred to some kind of tax benefits or tax incentives. So Ahmed, if you want to shed light, Ahmed Sobki, if you want to shed light, you or Tariq, on what you need more from the government. Ahmed, from within the ICT sector, said we can and we should give more support to innovation. What about the taxes and the customs that you want to bring to the table? What policy advice you want to see changing the current status quo?
Ahmed, if you allow me to jump in just to talk about the customs part, and then I'll leave you to the taxation part and the issues. From us, I mean, trade is a two-way thing. The more barriers you have in the customs, the more trade will stop. What we need specifically from NTRA and from other regulatory agencies is the speed of process of finalizing customs regulations or custom processes. It's too long. We have to also understand the difference between B2B trade and B2B and B2C trade. We are very focused on the B2B, but we're actually killing e-commerce B2B section. The cost and the pricing of the customs process, fees, and time is actually killing the cross-border trade. And this is something we need to work on. And this is something we ask regulators and the finance ministry to work on that. It's not the customs cost itself, not the percentage of customs, but the fees that are applied and the time that needs to be worked on.
Thank you so much. So it is lucky, the Ministry of Finance is lucky there is no one here to speak about the taxation. So probably that can be taken into another session.
I will.
Unless someone want to endeavor and take the lead, venture into this. Ahmed, you seem you have a solution from our side to give to the Ministry of Finance. Or ministries in finance in the region.
Let me tell you something that we saw that our colleagues in Palestine, although the very tough circumstances they are facing, they are allowing the e-commerce without any sort of taxes, and this is what is really needed in the other emerging countries in e-commerce. The e-commerce in the world started in mid-90s, and all the Western companies gave or exempted e-commerce transactions from any sort of taxation. So that this is what we are in need in our Arab countries, especially the emerging markets. Why? Because the e-commerce has two components: the technology and at the same time the trade. So that giving tax exemptions for the e-commerce is encouraging two big sectors, the sector for ICT and the sector for trade. And this encouraging the innovation and encouraging the logistics and encouraging a lot of things. So that we need the Ministry of Finances in many Arab countries to take this into consideration and make the balance between the income coming from this sort of trade or this sort of activity and the benefits coming out of having a lot of new businesses and new models and something like that in our countries like Kareem, like Swivel, like Otlob. A lot of things has come out of this business in our Arab countries. This is an important issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any other hands raised? Okay, there isn't. Okay, let me now wrap up. This session has contributed to debate, knowledge sharing, and also policy options related to digital economy at large. It touched on digital trade and e-commerce, and it touched also on fintech and e-payments. Not only that, we have got input from international organizations, League, ESCWA, and UNCTAD. We got input from the consultants in the market, and also we listened to experiences on 8 countries. Plus, we heard the views of telecom regulators, and banking sector. And we have seen many transitions and many shifts in conventional economic aspects. And this session is not an end, it's a start of a dialogue that we would like to take it further during next quarter and the subsequent quarters, so that we form policy positions that are useful and clear with trade-offs to the policymakers, and also to get to know the actors more and see how can we build partnership. The whole event is about digital cooperation and sustainable development. Digital cooperation and digital development. We are here really to present the potential of the region. And in another session, we discussed the potential of Asia and Arab continents or regions regarding digital cooperation. So there is a lot to be done. I thank all the actors, all the partners, and all the panelists, and plus the ESCWA team, of course, who worked for very long weeks to put together this session. I hope it was useful. I hope you benefited like what we did. We did benefit also from that. And sorry for taking a longer time than expected, but the momentum and the thrust pushed us to this. Once again, we wish speed recovery for our keynote speaker, former Minister, His Excellency, Mr. Khalid Hanafi. And we took note of a few recommendations he sent through his team for us to capture in our stock taking. Thanks a lot. Thank you. All the best, and see you soon, inshallah.
Thank you, Ayman, very much, and thank you for your team, and thank you for all the panelists from many of the organizations. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice holiday.
Same to you. Merry
Let
Christmas.
us hope to have a holiday.
Merry Christmas to Anne, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Shukran. We will see you soon. So this is à bientôt. Huh?
Très bien. Au revoir.
Under the slogan of shaping our digital future, the Arab International Digital Cooperation and Development Forum, DCDF, will bring together representatives and experts from Arab governments, the business sector, civil society, the technical community, academia, and international organizations. DCDF will be held virtually from 13 to 23 December 2021 by ESCWA, LAS, ITU, UNCTAD, and UNDESA. Through almost 30 sessions over 8 days, you can participate in policy debate on priority issues in the fields of internet policies and digital development globally and in the Arab region. DCDF aims to align the Arab tracks of the World Summit on the Information Society and the Internet Governance Forum to maximize opportunities for digital cooperation. Register now to join us in this journey from 13 to 23 December. Together, let's shape our digital future.